Yeah, now we're recording. Chapter 34 of the book of Genesis. Let me make sure that's right. Yep, that's right. Let me see. Get this set up just a little bit more
We
here.
were in Judges last night.
Yeah?
Study, yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right. You guys ready? All right, guys ready online? We're ready here. All right, today is Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023, and this is my little Bible study, and we're continuing with our line-by-line, verse-by-verse study of the book of Genesis. Tonight we're in chapter 34, and whenever I start talking about chapter 34 of the book of Genesis, I generally make a statement like this. This is one of these stories in the Bible that you don't generally hear a lot of times in church. All right? If you got kids watching, or if you're of a relatively young age, it's a little bit graphic. Much of the Bible is. It's just something you kind of learn to work with. All right. So just be forewarned. So if you have extremely little kids that you don't want to explain certain things to, well, don't let them listen. All right. And if you can't deal with it, then you don't listen. Just click out and go on about your business. All right. But we're going to be dealing with some adult subjects here tonight. You're going to find that at the end of all this scene that we're getting ready to go through, God doesn't really have too much to say about what happens. All right? You're getting ready to see what happened. Now, you got to remember, out of Jacob's boys, we got 11 patriarchs that are men. You got one little girl named Diana. All right? So let's just say this girl's probably pretty pampered. I would imagine. One daughter out of 11 sons across 4 women, this girl's spoiled. All right? But probably should be. I'm not saying Daddy's little girl's a wonderful thing. I got a few of them. All right? Now, and Diana, though, you got to think, she's probably looking for some girlfriends. You got to think about it. She got her mom and 11 brothers. She needs some companionship that's female other than her mom. All right? But this is where it starts out with. Chapter 34, verse 1, listen to what it says. First, I'd like to say, Father, we ask this to open eyes and open ears, no matter where they may be. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. 34, verse 1, and Diana, the daughter of Leah. Now, you got to remember, Leah's the mother. She has knocked out 6 patriarchs, all right? And with her handmaid, that's 8 altogether. With the 2 other women, just 2 and 2 each, so that's 4. All right? So Leah, let's just say Leah is the mother of patriarchs, all right? All right, but she bore unto Jacob and went out to see, and Diana, the daughter of Leah, which she bore to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. So they're there in the land of Canaan, and she's looking for girlfriends. All right? And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivitite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. All right? So he just didn't take her, he defiled her. So he raped her. Okay? Now, you're going to find out, you don't find out until the end that she stays there with Shechem, all right? So not only does he take her, but he's keeping her. All right? She's not going to be allowed to return to her family. All right? Verse 3, and his soul clave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel after the fact, right? And he spake kindly unto the damsel. Now, this isn't, notice he's referring to her the damsel. That's like saying to the girl. Okay? Not Jacob's daughter, all right? And not the only daughter out of all the patriarchs, but just some girl. Okay? So remember, that's kind of how he's looking at this girl, at Dinah, all right? Verse 4, and Shechem spake unto his father Hamor, saying, give me this damsel to wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Diana his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they come. So Jacob heard what was going on. I don't know how he did it, but he stayed quiet about it. Now you got to remember in chapter 34, remember at the end of 34, Jacob and Shechem and Hamor, they just did a big land deal, right? It's what Jacob bought the parcel of land where he'd been camped. I'm thinking about how many people were with him. So it had been quite a big land deal. All right. So Jacob's putting down roots here in this country with these people buying land. All right. Now Jacob heard, okay, we got that. And he held his peace. Verse 6, and Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved. All right. And they were very wroth, because he wrought folly in Israel and lying with Jacob's daughter. All right, which thing ought not be done. All right, well, let's go on with this. We're going to read this whole encounter and then we're going to talk about it, all right? And Hamor, or go through about half of it. And Hamor communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give him to wife. Okay. That's the first thing right there. Now, let's go back what's happened. So we've had Diana's been raped. She's been held prisoner. All right, Jacob hears about it, but he waits till his sons come out of the field so they can have a little powwow about this, all right? Now, this is the thing that they say. Listen, it says, and make ye marriages with us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. Okay? And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you, and dwell and trade ye therein, and get ye possessions therein. And now think about what has just been said here. Here we're in the book of Genesis, so now we're going to have to apply things that we've learned in the book of Genesis. All right, when we start talking about Adam's lineage out of the Garden of Eden, first barrier you run into becomes the days of Noah. All right, where you had the Nephilim that had went after all the daughters of Adam. All right, and so you had a bloodline that was being destroyed. It was only Noah and his family, if you remember, that didn't contain Nephilim DNA. All right, now God wiped out a whole bunch of people keeping that lineage straight right there. Now, you remember, you go on to Abraham and to Sarah. When Abraham and Sarah had Isaac, when it was time for Isaac to wife, what was the one concern that they had of who Isaac should marry? It was that she didn't take a Canaanite wife of where the land where they were, even though it was going to be their land eventually, and they knew it. But he had to go all the way back to, it was Abraham's brother's side of the family to find Rebekah, right? And now, that's really significant. Well, you go on, and Rebekah has Jacob and Esau. What was the thing that they were mad at Esau about? That he'd taken 2 Canaanite wives. All right? They were upset about it because they knew it shouldn't be done because it brought folly in the land of Israel. All right, so let's flash forward again. And then, so you got Jacob. That's the only thing they're worried about with Jacob. Esau had 2 Canaanite wives they want. Jacob makes sure he gets a wife from where? All the way back to the tribe of Midian. All right, which is his son from Abraham and his second wife, Keturah. All right. So you see, God has went out of his way in every instance in the birth of Israel with the patriarchs to make sure that this family stayed together as a group. All right, and now here you got this wackadoodle who looks right at Jacob and says, well, guess what, buddy? We're going to take your daughters, and you're going to take our daughters, and we're going to want one people. The same people that God has been against them doing this with the entire time. All right, so I want you to keep that in mind, okay? And Shechem said unto her father, and unto her brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, that ye shall say unto me, I will give. So please give me your sister. Please give me your daughter. All right? Ask ever so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as you say unto me, but give me the damsel, the wife. Give me that girl, not your daughter. All right? Not one of the only daughters in the lineage that's going to become Israel. All right, now let's not overlook this. All right, let's go on. All right. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully. All right, and said, because he had defiled Diana their sister, and they said unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister unto one that is uncircumcised. All right, so these boys are hatching a plan. They answered this. They've thought this out. They've sat down and done this. And now you got to remember, the 2 boys that are involved in this are Diana's blood brothers. One's Levi and one's Simeon. All right? And Diana's their blood sister, Jacob and Leah. All right, so this girl's close to these 2 boys. All right, it's their sister, the one they've raised at their tent with their mother. All right? For we are a reproach unto us if you're not circumcised. But this will be consent unto you if we will be as we be, and every man be circumcised. Every male of you be circumcised. 16, then we will give our daughters unto you, all right, and we will take your daughters unto us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. All right, see, that whole idea right there is what has doomed this entire bunch of people. All right, is that they are going to become one people. Now, I have no doubt the devil's involved in this, because remember this. Let's think about this. Now, why is Diana so important? All right, because this is the only girl out of all the patriarchs, but why is she so important? All right, this is why. Because the promise goes all the way back to Eve. All right, it was Eve, Adam's wife, who was promised to be the mother of all living. Not because she's the first woman, all right, and everybody descends from her, but through her children will eventually come the man Jesus. Okay, because he's born out of these tribes that we're talking about. This very lineage that God is going out of his way to maintain until the birth of the Christ child. All right, now these people have just sealed their doom with the idea that we were going to be the same people. Okay, because that wasn't in God's plan. And every time people get outside of God's plan like that, they get smacked. All right, now listen to what it says about this. Now let's go a little bit farther. All right, there's this DNA in humans called mitochondrial DNA. All right, mitochondrial DNA is DNA that is only passed from mother to daughter. All right, boys don't have it because we have a Y. It's carried along the X chromosome. All right, the only way we can get that is there's no way we can get that. Now, that mitochondrial link starts with Eve, but it goes through Eve. We got Abraham and Sarah. So Sarah, because Abraham's not involved in this. Then what? Rebecca's next. And then Leah and Rachel and Bilhah and Zilpah. All right? All this is a mitochondrial link from one woman to another woman to another woman. Well, you keep following that lineage, you follow the man side in the Bible all day long. All right? But the mitochondrial DNA is right there behind it, right there with it. And it's being passed right along, and it runs right up to the woman that we call Mary, mother of Jesus. All right? Because if they get a hold of Diana, all right, and can pollute Diana from the beginning, then there's no bloodline that Christ can come through. Because it's passed along through Mary, the mother of all living. All right? So that's why Diana's so important. Now, bearing that in mind, let's see what the two brothers do. All right? But if you will hearken unto us and to be circumcised, then we will take our daughters and we'll be gone. If you don't do it, we're out of here. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem and Hamor's son. And the young man deferred not to do the thing because he had delight in Jacob's daughter. And he was more honorable than all the house of his father. Verse 20, and Hamor and Shechem, his son, came into the gate of their city and communed with the men of the city, saying, remember, this is all just a setup. All right? These men are peaceable with us. Therefore, let them dwell in the land, trade therein for the land. Behold, it is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Exactly the thing that they're not supposed to do. Now, can you imagine these boys? They've been sitting around hearing these stories about how Grandpa was ticked because of their uncle. Yeah. All right? They've heard these stories all their life. This bread and butter, they grew up on this stuff, so these boys know what they're involved in by now. All right? Listen to what they do. Only therein will the men consent unto us to dwell with us, to be one people, if every man among us be circumcised, as they are circumcised. Shall not their cattle and their substance, every beast of theirs, be ours? Right to the quick, right there. They got a lot of bling bling, and it'll all be ours if we do this. All right. 24. And unto Hamor and unto Shechem his son, hearken to all that went out of the gate of his city, and every male was circumcised, that all that went out of his city. And it came to pass on the third day, so they waited 3 days. Now these boys are good and sore. All right? And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, the two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Diana's brethren. This word brethren here means a wink through the womb. All right? So that's actually their sister, their blood sister. All right? It took each man his sword and came upon the city boldly and slew all the males. I told you at one point that it was everybody, but it was men. I just had remembered it wrong. All right, but it might as well have been because what's going to happen next, right? All right. So these boys came in, 2 men now. All right, now let me ask you, pretty sore, but do you think an entire town like this would it'd be probably a little bit big, but do you think 2 men, if God is not in this, how did 2 men take out an entire city by themselves? All right. What I'm saying is, from a military perspective, it's not going to happen. Even if they're sore from circumcision, 6 of them with swords are going to hammer 2 people in the ground pretty quick. All right. Even if they got to go get women to drop rocks on their head from the wall. But God is in this. Why? Because that mitochondrial link through Eve, right? And they're sleeping and they're sore. And these boys went in. They knew they went in with intention. Yeah, that's right. But yet they go and listen to what they say. And they slew Hamor and Shechem, his sons, with the edge of the sword, and took Diana from Shechem's house and went out. That was where she'd been being held. All right? And the sons of Jacob came upon the slain in the spoiled city. Now, I think this is not just the 2, but I think it's the rest of the boys finally are catching up with what's going on. All right? And now they're catching up on the scene. And the sons of Jacob came upon the slain that their 2 other brothers had already done, and spoiled the city because they had defiled their sister. So everybody getting involved now. And they took their sheep and their oxen and their asses and that which was in the city and that which was in the field, and all their wealth and all their little ones and all their wives took they captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house. So they might not have killed the women and children, but they enslaved them just the same. Remember, this is before the laws of slavery exist in the Bible. Right? Verse 30, and Jacob said unto and Jacob said unto Simeon and Levi. All right, remember, did it say God says? No. It said Jacob, a man says this, all right? And Jacob said to Simeon and to Levi, ye have troubled me to make me stink among the inhabitants of this land. All right? Among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves against me and shall slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. So the only thing, Jacob's now, the brothers are thinking about revenge, but Jacob's thinking about the whole house. All right? You've seen him do this before. Did he not take all 4 of his wives and divide them out and put them in a row when they were going to deal with Esau? I mean, how would you like to have been that first one? How would you like to have been that handmaid with the 2 sons in the very front going that, everybody, he thinks we'll be the ones that could be killed first. All right? Like I said, that would have been some tough stuff to deal with when that went down. But nonetheless, so that's all he's worried about is the destruction of his house, right? And listen to what the 2 boys said, though. And they said, should he deal with our sister as an harlot? All right, are you going to treat our sister like a prostitute? All right, so these boys are just pulling the truth card on him. They understand what's going on. It's Jacob that's kind of losing a little bit of sight here. But nonetheless, did God say anything about to these boys right at this point? About any of it? No, but Jacob stays pretty ticked because you'll see when they get their blessing, well, he punishes them based on the blessing too because of what they've done. So he takes that stuff to the heart and to the grave with him. All right. But nonetheless, you ain't heard God say one word. Right? Why? Because I can't say for definite, sure, but 2 Levi and Simeon just hopped up and took care of business. All right? They defended their sister. They defended the lineage that had been established. They understood their connection to the Messiah, even probably them. All right. So I think that's why God remains silent on this thing. But leave it up to you. It doesn't say, so you can do what you want. All right. Now I go over to 35. God said unto Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel, and dwell there, and make thee an altar unto God that appeared unto thee when thou fleddest from the face of Esau thy brother. If you remember what was going on with him, if you remember, before he wrestled with God and got his leg hurt, well, the only thing he was worried about was Esau was going to kill him and all of his kids. All right, and God tells him, anything you pray in my name, it'll be yours. And that was the only thing he was worried about. So when Esau shows up, there's peace with Esau, even though he brought 400 men to make good on his promise to kill his brother. All right. But nonetheless, he follows God's rules, not his own, when God wants him to. All right. Then Jacob said unto his household, and to all that were with him, put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments. Remember those teraphim that Rachel took from her dad? The gold things, they still had all those things that they had drug with them. If you remember, Abraham's brother side of the family are idol worshipers, if you remember. And that's exactly what he's talking about. Not just that one, but any of the other ones that they would have with them. Let us arise and go to Bethel, which means the house of God, and I will make there an altar unto God, who answered me in the day of my distress, when I was with me in the way which I went. And they gave unto Jacob all the strange gods which were in their hands, and all the earrings which were in their ears. And Jacob hid them under an oak, which was by Shechem. So somewhere there's a nice little treasure buried under some roots somewhere in the Middle East. Someday somebody's going to find them, and they're going to go, oh, wait, I know what this is. Verse 5, and they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the city that was round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob. So the thing that Jacob was worried about, God's got covered. So nobody went after him. So Jacob came to Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all the people that were with him. And he built an altar there and called the place El Bethel, because there God appeared unto him, and he fled from the face of his brother. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died. Now this is not the same Deborah from the book of Judges. This is another Deborah. And she was Rebekah's nurse, and she died. And she was buried beneath Bethel under an oak. So somewhere around that region, you're going to find a grave under an oak, under some roots, and then a nice little treasure stash under some other trees, under some other roots, right? And the name of it was called Allon Bachuth. And God appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Pandamaram and blessed him. It's getting to be a habit with Jacob, right? I mean, think about it. He is patriarch prime. All right, he is the daddy source for every patriarch that there is. And that means the entire house of Israel. All right, and God said unto him, thy name is Jacob, and thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, which means heel catcher, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel. Now, this is the second time, right? Because he wrestled with him. He told him, then he changed it. It was just them. Now there's witnesses involved in it. So I think it's just more of an official thing. All right? Verse 11, God said unto him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. Go all the way back to the beginning of Genesis. Everything God has ever created, that has been the primary commandment to anything that he made. Be fruitful and multiply. All right, so he repeats it here with Jacob. Now listen, I want you to just hold on to this next phrase. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. All right, and before we get finished with Joseph, you're going to understand that real good, all right, because I want you to remember that. A nation and a company of nations, all right, because you're going to hear it again. Verse 12, in the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed after thee will I give the land. And God went up from him in that place where he talked with him. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, even a pillar of stone, and he poured a drink offering thereon and poured oil thereon. So he anointed the stone and presented the drink offering. All right. And Jacob called the name of the place where God spake with him Bethel, the house of God. All right, now, verse 16. And they journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath, and Rachel travailed. Now, this is Jacob's favorite wife. All right. And she travailed, and she had hard labor. All right, so this is not going so good. And it came to pass, when she was in hard labor, that the midwife said unto her, fear not, thou shalt have this son also. All right. Already had one. All right. And it came to pass, as her soul was in departing, for she died, that she called his name Ben-Ammi, all right, which means son of my sorrow. And you can see why. It's killing her. It killed her to bring him into this world. All right. But his father called him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. All right, so he didn't stick with what Mama stuck on him. All right, he had a whole new intention for his last son, the 12th patriarch. And that's why his name is son of my right hand, Benjamin. And he's the baby out of all of them. All right, and Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. All right, so now this favorite woman, all right, is buried along the side of the road with a midwife and a stash of, a stash of gold, basically, which were just ancient gods. All right? Now, Leah, think about Leah. You know where Leah's going to end up being buried? Back in the cave of Mizpah with Abraham. All right? The one that he had all those dealings with to get a good place to bury Sarah. All right? So you tell me who God's favorite patriarch, or mother of the patriarchs is. All right? Hands down, it's got to be Leah. All right? Now, like I said, Jacob preferred Rachel, but it seems to me like God prefers Rachel or Leah. All right? Just my opinion. Nobody give me any hate mail because I won't read it anyway. I just don't care. But verse 20, and Jacob set a pillar upon her grave, that is a pillar of Rachel's grave unto this day. And Israel, which his name was Jacob, journeyed and spread his tent beyond the tower of Edar. And it came to pass when Israel dwelt in the land that Reuben went and laid with Bilhah, his father's concubine. All right, now this is something he's not supposed to do, right? And Israel heard of it, and now the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah, listen to this. Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun. All right? Now you got to think about this. Judah's the king's line. This is the line that Christ is adopted into through the lineage through Joseph, right? Well, the other one of his sons is Levi. That's the priest nation. That's the priest tribe that becomes the priest. Both of them, both the king's line and the priest line, run across that mitochondrial path that leads through Leah. And keep that in mind when you're talking about Diana and what they did to Diana and why the two brothers then acted the way they did. All right? Verse 24, and the sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. All right? Only two out of his favorite wife. And the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. So together that side of the house has 4 patriarchs. All right? And the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. Right. 26, and the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born unto him in Pandamaram. 27, and Jacob came unto Issachar, unto Isaac, his father, unto Mamre, unto the city of Adabah, which is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac sojourned. So it's just a big circle. This family's made this track through here a couple of times now, right? And the days of Isaac were 180 years. And Isaac gave up the ghost and died and was gathered unto his people, being old and full of days. And his sons, Esau and Jacob, buried him. That finishes chapter 35. So now we got Isaac's dead. All right, and the only ones are left besides the patriarchs are Jacob and Esau. All right. Now the next chapter is Esau's descendancy, and we're not going to cover this whole chapter. But I am going to cover some stuff in it, because there are some stuff that's kind of important. All right, and one is the reference to Edom. All right, because when you study prophecy, Edom is spoken of a lot. All right, and you have to know who that is. You have to know that is Esau's people. That means that's Russia and all the people that speak that language on that end of the world. All right, and that's what it says in verse 1. Now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. All right. Now, if you go down to the 7th and 8th verse, remember what's it said? If it's repeated really quickly, it's twice for emphasis. It's like stamping it with an exclamation point. All right. Verse 7 says, for these riches were more than they might dwell together. Talking about Esau and Jacob. They had so much together in one spot that the land couldn't support them. All right. And the land therein, they were strangers, could not bear them because of their cattle. There were just too many. Thus Esau dwelt in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. Again, within the 8 verses, that's repeated twice. And you have to know who Edom is, or you don't know what you're talking about or reading about when you talk about prophecies in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, all right? Yeah, so then from there, let's go all the way down. Let's see, I know I had something else. All right, verse 31, all right, because there's something that happens here. And these are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom before there reigned any king over the children of Israel. So the first group of leaders then, between Jacob and Esau, Esau's group are the ones that are producing the kings and actually running the land during that time period, right? All right. So now in verse 35, and Husam died, Hadad, the son of Bedad, who smote Midian in the field of Moab, reigned in his stead, and the name of his city is Havilah. All right. Remember who Midian is, all right? Midian comes from the second wife of Abraham, right? So here we have some of Esau's group going back and actually attacking some of their relatives. Pretty close family, actually, not that far removed from them. All right? So I just remember what he said. Remember when Esau was in trouble, he said he was always going to make his living by the sword. You know, and that's exactly what he's been doing to this day. That's right. That's all they do. That's right. All right. That's right, big bullies, right? Okay, now, I want you to understand how extensive still. Okay, Esau, he missed the birthright and the blessing, all right? But that doesn't mean he's cut out everything, because listen to this. This is the last few verses of this chapter, and we're done for today after that. All right, starting in verse 40. These are the names of the dukes that came from Esau, all right? According to their families, after their places, by their names, Duke Timah, Duke Avlah, Duke Jetheth, Duke Damalabah, Duke Elah, Duke Pinon, Duke Kinza, Duke Timon, Duke Mibzah, Duke Migdal, Duke Iram. All right, that's 11. All right, not 12, but there's 11 of them. And they don't have the blessing. Remember, everything we was told was away from. Everything was a curse. So he wasn't going to live in the fat of the land, but away from the fat of the land. So he has all this inheritance, but no real way to feed them. All right, and that's why you still see Russia to this day. Anytime they have a major meeting with somebody, food is one of the subjects that they're talking about. Because they want their soup. That's right. Esau traded his birthright for a bowl of soup, and they've been hungry ever since. It wasn't even good soup. It was poor pottage made. It wasn't even good soup, right? It was just some pottage. So that takes us all the way through Esau. Now, I didn't want to go through all that because it's just stammering like that through my tongue through a lot of that. But I wanted to point out that in the end, he gets 12 princes, calls them dukes. You know, Jacob has 12. And then if you remember, you go all the way back to Ishmael's mama. She has a big promise with a multitude of people, and Ishmael too has a big promise with his 12. I mean, and you got to remember, when we're talking about Genesis, we're talking about building nations. We're not talking about just these people. It's these cool stories and things to learn from the stories. But you got to know that these are peoples that exist today, that have existed through time to this day. All right, and they're all in play as we go. Anyway, that's all we got for tonight. You guys online, we'll see you. We'll see you next week. And ta-da! Have a good night.